Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Today we're looking at DC Who's Who. This is issue 26. Wow, I've been doing this for a long time. I love doing this series, this fun series. And as we can see, we're down to the W's. We're getting towards the end. And what does this feature? This features everyone's favorite Wonder Woman and Wonder Girl. And again, I'm not going to name everybody because the names are right here. What's the point? But we got Green Lantern over here. We got, who is this guy? I don't even know who that guy is. What's this guy called? Neutron or something. Yes, Neutron. See, there's the name over there. Why is, oh, Plus Angel. Okay, so they're filling in. Gee, that's funny. I didn't notice this. They're filling in people that they forgot. So let's look at the back cover. Or maybe people that debuted while they were doing these comics. Look at them. I love this. The original Wonder Woman over here. Zatanna. Okay. I could sit there and point to everything and say, look at this all day long. So this is April 1987. Cool stuff. All right. Let's see, I'm using my cool new microphone over here. Let's see if it works. Tell me in the comments if the sound looks good. I'm doing high tech today. I'm using a tripod. I'm using the correct aspect ratio, and I'm using a microphone. So let's see, how's this work? So I always like to look at the names of the letter writers. Don Hinkle, I know that name from somewhere. And here's the creators over here. And the cover is Paris Cullins and Dick Giordano. I seem to be talking a lot about Paris Cullins in this series. So, you know, well, just other than I really like him. So we got the Wizard over here. And as you can see from the Wizard, that he fights the Justice Society. So here we got the Justice Society, and I think he was from he had a magic wand or something like that, and he could control reality. Just super powerful. Another one of these like DC all powerful villains. I kind of like that. I like the stage magician look for a villain. I just think it's cool. And who's this? Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. That's a mouthful, but what a talent he is. What a talent he is. And we got Wizard World. I know nothing about Wizard World, but I really like this background drawing. This is, oh, Mike Grell. Wow, I don't know anything about this. Oh, Wizard World and Warlord 28. Okay, all right. All right, so I guess that's a backup. And why don't I know this? I know I'm reading Warlord. Maybe I'm not as far along as I thought I was, because I don't know this. And here we got George Perez doing Wonder Girl. Oh my God, I could sing the praises of George Perez over and over and over again. I mean, geez, I say this every time his name comes up, but him and John Byrne, they're like rotating, like a rotating door. Which one do I love more? Well, depends. Who did I just read more recently? But what, guys, I cannot recommend enough the George Perez, Marv Wolfman, New Teen Titans. They really changed comic book storytelling, really. And in a time when to me most DC comics were goofy and there's childlike in positive sense, and then there's childish, which I consider to be like negative. I think at the time, and I may be wrong, and if you want to fight with me, I'm not going to defend my position. It's just my gut feeling. But I feel at the time that like early 80s and 70s DC was childish, you know, not childlike. And the New Teen Titans came along and really changed everything for the better. Oh, Trina Robbins. I didn't even have Robbins. I don't even have to look at the name to recognize this artwork. So good. Such great. I love her work. It's very old-fashioned but timeless at the same time, if that makes sense. So this is the original Wonder Woman. What can I say about the original Wonder Woman? Geez, she's just amazing. Just an amazing character. You know, she wasn't the first female superhero, but she's you know, the most popular, the best, if you ask me. I love Wonder Woman. And she's a character that had her ups, she's had her downs, and man, when her ups are up, she is one of the best. When she hits a low point, geez, it's unbearable. But I met Trina Robbins at a convention, and I bought a sketch off her. I didn't buy an original commission. I bought an already created sketch off for her. And she was, what was she with Ramona Fradon? I think that was, yeah. I bought a Justice Society from Trina Robbins, and I bought an Avengers from Ray Fredona. I always get the names mixed up. And I lost them both. I don't know where they are. I think they're in a comic book somewhere. I'm going to have to go through my entire collection to find these. Oh, man. And here we have the modern Wonder Woman. Why is she drawn by George Perez? Because George Perez redesigned her. George Perez, like, rebooted her comic after the Crisis of Infinite Earths. And this is when... I've always liked Wonder Woman. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the Linda Carter series. I remember the debut. And believe it or not, pardon me while I take a sip of coffee. Believe it or not, they took the pilot episode and they released it in the movie theaters. And I actually saw... It was on TV already, and then I went to go see the pilot episode in the movie theaters. They did the same thing with Battlestar Galactica. I don't know if that was just my local movie theater or if that was a thing in the early 70s. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So ever since I saw that in the movie theaters, I've loved Wonder Woman. And how can you not? Linda Carter in that outfit is outrageous. So, but... The comics, to me, again, was childish. You know, it wasn't the way I liked comic books. It wasn't suited to my style of comic books, if that makes any sense. So, I never collected her comics until the Crisis on Infinite Earths rebooted the character. And, oh, man, they did such a good job. I really, really like the George Perez. Matter of fact, that's one of my first videos that I'm like... kind of proud of, if that makes anything. That's like one of the videos that I asked one of my friends to watch. I was like, this is what I want to do with this channel, make videos like this. You know, it's still kind of primitive, it's in my own unprofessional manner, but you know, whatever, that's the way it is. Wotan by Mike Mignola. It says, no alter ego. He's a sorcerer, scientist, would-be conqueror. And who does he fight? Dr. Fate. Oh, yes, that's right. He's a Dr. Fate villain. I love Dr. Fate, and I barely remember this character. I know I have a couple of comics of his appearance, especially the Dr. Fate series of J.M. DeMatteis in the 90s, but I don't really know much about him. I just know that Wotan is another name for Odin. So, of course, I like him. I have a thing for Odin. Mike DeCarlo's doing The Wrath. Now, this is a strange comic character. Okay, The Wrath. So, he's the anti-Batman. So, he was a cop. He was a criminal, excuse me, whose parents were killed by a cop. So, he has the exact same origin as Batman, but in the reverse. And I don't know who created him, but he, as far as I know, he only has one appearance, Batman Special #1. And it is a phenomenal comic. I should showcase that. And according to Chuck Dixon, he says like every year or every 2 years, somebody pitches a Wraith comic to the DC people, and they turn it down, and they never give an explanation. You know, why? Why are they keeping this character like under wraps? Chuck Dixon says that DC has these weird deals that they honor for good or for bad for a long time. Like Denny O'Neil, when he was retiring, he said he was going to write Azrael till issue 100, no matter how bad or good it sold, and they honored that deal. So, like, there's certain characters that you cannot get a comic book made because there's a deal with somebody. So the Wraith, you know, he has one appearance. People like him. They want to see more of him. DC, for whatever reason, is honoring a secret deal. The same goes for the Legion of Substitute Heroes. I don't know what's going on. That's not according to me. That's according to Chuck Dixon. So I'll believe him. Wind by Jan Duursema. I don't know if Jan Duursema, I don't know if it's pronounced Jan or if it's Jan. I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but I love the work, so therefore I'm a fan of this person who I don't really know much. Just great artwork. I just really love it. And I know it's mostly like science fiction, like, well, not science fiction, sword sorcery stuff. There's a lot of like fantasy stuff. So this is Arion, Lord of Atlantis, which was a bizarre comic. Character that, like, he was a sorcerer in ancient Atlantis and then brought into the brought into the DC modern world. I like the character. Again, I didn't particularly like sword and sorcery stuff, but I got Arion because he was on the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then they brought him into the modern world. So to me, he was like a Doctor Strange kind of sorcerer with an extended backstory. So I collected it. You know, I don't know. It doesn't fit my pattern. But, you know, humans are complicated, and I'm a complicated person. So this is The Wyoming Kid. Looks like John Wayne over here, by Tom Yeats. Tom Yeats is an astounding talent. Tom Yeats, I didn't really know too much in you know, during my discovery of comic phase, you know, from like my teen years to my early 20s. Because he mostly did like war comics and Western comics, and I avoided them. And, you know, the more I see Tom Yeats, the more annoyed I am that I didn't follow this guy's astounding career. He's just an amazing, like when I call you a draftsman, I don't know if I'm using the term correct or not, but I just look at I'll be generous and say almost all comic book creators can draw figures, and you know, and people but a draftsman to me is the guy who does stuff like this, like all the architecture in the background, you know, I hate to sound snooty and I hate to be like, get off my lawn, kids, but I think that's the kind of stuff that's like lacking in a lot of modern comics, is these people who make realistic looking, you know, multiple points of perspective artwork of just the normal everyday stuff, you know, cars, neighborhoods, houses. Oh God, now I got to sneeze and I don't want to start all over again. So now we have The Goddess Zal by Todd, excuse me, forgive me. Okay, it went away. Todd Smith and Larry Malstead. Zal is the goddess that Coriander or Starfire worships. She is the goddess for Tamaran. That's her homeworld planet. Now, unless they retcon this, she was a Tamaranian. She was just a normal person like Starfire from her planet, if that could be considered normal. But the Scions experimented with her, and the Scions are the ones that unlock their genetic potential for harvesting solar energy for flight and power blasts. But they took her in their past and I don't know, force-fed her super doses to the point where she became ultra powerful, and I think she like liberated the world from the Scions, and she became a deity. You know, even though she's just a vastly powerful, I don't want to say meta-human, but meta-Tamaranian. She's a Mediterranean. I just think that's funny. So there's your story. So this is the Yankee Poodle, Rover Barkett from the Captain Carrot and the Zoo Crew. A comic book that I avoided this comic like the plague. You better believe I avoided this comic as a kid, because I didn't like... I'm very, very particular about humor comics. So I did not pick this up at all. And now I bought a full run of it on eBay. I'm about halfway through, and I got to say, it's a blast. It's superior to the Marvel humor comics in that the Marvel humor comics are just like, instead of saying like Captain America, they'll be like Captain Schmerica. You know, or instead of the Human Torch, the Human Scorch. This is the Hulk, it's the Bulk. It's like, oh, wow, you changed one letter, and now it's funny. And they also just didn't do, like, pop culture references. Like, look, I was about to make a Friends reference. Like, that's relevant today, but I don't know. What shows are relevant today? I don't even know. Like, even The Office is old right now. But you know what I'm talking about. Like, just modern pop culture. I just don't find that to be funny. But the humor kind of came out of the situation, which I think is more difficult, but the payoff is better. So I do find this comic to be successful in its mission, whereas it's kind of spoofing comic book culture, superhero culture, and it's being humorous at the same time. So yeah, I kind of do dig it, you know. Plus the Scott Shaw artwork is just really good. It's really charming, really good. The yellow, the Yellow Perry. I couldn't read it. Sometimes I have difficulty reading through the phone. By Mark Vanier and Kurt Schaffenberger. It's funny that Mark Vanier is drawing this, because I know him as a writer for the most part. I think I talked about Mark Vanier before, but he was a kid in California who found out that Jack Kirby lived in his neighborhood, and he did what any comic book fan would do. He went and knocked on Jack Kirby's door. I mean, how could you not? And Jack's wife, Rosalind, was very gracious. She's like, oh, a little comic book fan. And she want to meet Jack, brought him down to the basement. Jack's in that famous drawing board in the basement, in the dungeon. And they hung out, and he would just come and talk to Jack Kirby. How cool is that? How cool is that? Kudos for doing that. I think that's just a phenomenal story. But anyway, he struck up a lifelong friendship with Jack Kirby, and then when he wanted to get work in comic books, Jack said, yeah, I know this guy. And that's all it takes, right? I mean, geez, Jack Kirby says, I know this guy. You're in like Flynn, right? How could you not be? So he got his foot in the door, and he's a talented writer. So I didn't know he does art. Every once in a while I forget things. Like Chuck Dixon started out as an artist, but either he didn't have the chops or the patience, you know, whatever, or he was just better at writing. I don't know. But he gave up his art. He says his art, Chuck Dixon says that his art helps him in that sometimes he'll do like a little bit of a layout for a panel to give to the artist for reference. So that's cool. The Zamarons. So these are outer space Amazons, like that. I think they deal with the Green Lantern. Yeah, Green Lantern series number 16. I don't know much about them other than didn't some of these become like the Star Sapphire crew? So they're space Amazons. Zatanna. I've always liked Zatanna, but I know it's like blasphemy to say this. I've always liked Zatanna, but I cannot stand reading her dialogue. It drives me crazy. Like they might as well just write nonsense, because I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to read it. It just drives me crazy. But so anyway, if those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, she's a magician from Homo Magi. So they're like a subsect of humanity, and they're born with magical powers. So they're like a wizarding world in Harry Potter. So, and I think they come from ancient Rome or someplace close to that. So that they're kind of like of Italian descent or Latin descent. And what they do is they use backward magic. So instead of saying like open the door, you write open the door. She'll write, you flip it over, and there's no way I'm reading it, and there's no way I'm pronouncing it. So, and then she says it backwards, and the door opens, and she's like ultra powerful, really ultra powerful. And she has a bunch of different costumes. The most famous costume is the stage magician, like her father. She has like a stage magician with the fishnet stocking. This is the George Perez design costume. It's cool too, but there's some, like I said, I like the stage magician costume for villains and superheroes. So art by Gray Morrow, just a phenomenal talent. I first became aware of Gray Morrow in a Pacific Comic 3-issue miniseries called Edge of Chaos, and it was about a guy who goes back in time, and his name was Eric Cleese, and he finds out that he is Hercules, and he goes through all, so it's a time traveler, becomes a Greek mythological hero. Why am I talking about that? Because of Gray Morrow. Great artist. Great artist. And this is Zatara. This is Zatanna's father. I don't know why that was difficult for me to say, but it was difficult for me to say. And I already showcased his death in that Swamp Thing number 50. Oh my God, what a great comic. I think that was one of my very first Sunday comics. Oh boy, do I love that comic. By Fred Fredericks, which I don't know every artist. So Fred Fredericks, I'm sorry, buddy. I liked your art, but I just don't know who you are. And speaking of the Zoo Crew, this is by Scott Shaw again. Look, isn't this art just charming? So this is all the animal superheroes of the Zoo Crew. So they're like the Justice League on, I forget what Earth, but that was like DC's shtick, is that each, DC had the multiverse before the multiverse was cool. And nobody was, well, they say people were confused by that, but I wasn't confused by it. So each Earth had its own designation, Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3, and I think this was Earth C, I forget. I think they tell us, yeah, Earth C, right? It says it right there. And that world is populated by anthropomorphic funny animals. So we have Ali Kadabra Cat, Captain Carrot, he's like the Superman guy, Pig Iron, Yankee Doodle Poodle. This is Fastback, he's the super speed turtle. This is Little Cheese, which is a goof on Captain Marvel, Shazam, and the Rubber Duck. I like them. It's a charming comic. Again, I'm halfway through the series. It's a lot of fun. And who is this? Zoot Sputnik by Fred Hembeck. I could talk about Fred Hembeck, but I cannot talk about Zoot Sputnik because I don't know anything about Zoot Sputnik. But he looks like all fun. So he's a funny character. Looks like he time travels. I don't know. He's beating up Nazis. He's over here in the Cowboys. So I don't know. I don't know much about him. But I do know that Fred Hembeck, he does like a comic book lampoons. I mean, he goofs on comic books, and I love them. You know, I'm a complicated person. Here I am breaking my own rules. I didn't like these. I didn't like funny comics, because comedy to me is the hardest thing. I think the hardest thing to do. And if horror fails, if horror, at least you had a well-drawn drama. But if comedy fails, it is the worst. Oh my God. Like, go see a not funny stand-up comedian and tell me that that was a pleasant experience. Oh my God. So a humor comic that is not funny is excruciating. But I don't know, just the artwork was funny to me for Fred Hembeck. He didn't even have, so he got like 75% of his work done just drawing the comic. He you know, he has like a funny, whimsical style that I just enjoyed his style. So there you go. You know, I say that I don't like humor comics, but I'm pointing out that there were humor comics that I actually enjoyed. Just like I didn't like science fiction comics, but I did get like Battlestar Galactica. You know, I didn't like Swords and Sorcery, but I still got a Gem World, you know, so, you know, I'm whatever. Zyklon, oh God, I just got kind of creeped out by this, but Zyklon is the name of the gas that they use in the concentration camps to exterminate people. So it is a great name for a bad guy. So he's a Nazi German, fights the All-Star Squadron, art by Michael Baer, who I absolutely love. Michael Baer, to me, is like a timeless classic art superhero artist. Like I could see his comics being fresh and exciting in the 70s, and I could see his comics being fresh and exciting now. You know, he's just a classic. Just you know, I don't know, like a standard. You know, like I know I'm not giving him the proper words that he deserves, but I think you guys understand what I'm saying. Angel and the Ape by Phil Foglio and Bob Oscar. Now here's another one. Phil Foglio did funny comics, but I first became aware of Phil Foglio in Dragon magazine. He did like funny spoofs on Dungeons and Dragons, and I love Dungeons and Dragons. So just seeing his name, I was like, oh, I was already a fan of his. He does cartoony, kind of funny comics, and I liked him because, again, he did comic strips. Comic strips were supposed to be funny, so you know, he wasn't. You know, it wasn't like he was doing Superman in a disrespectful, funny way. He was actually doing comic strips. God, I'm repeating myself. But so I liked him. Angel and the Ape. A lot of things that I don't like in comic books are coming up in this particular issue. But I forget who it was. But was it Gardner Fox said that if you put a gorilla on a comic book, it's like printing money. Well, to me, it was the opposite. If I saw gorillas, I did not buy the comic. I did not. But, like, I famously got angry at a Fantastic Four comic because it had a big golden gorilla. I think his name was, I can't even remember his name, like Tor or something like that. And I was like, I can't believe I'm buying a big gorilla comic. I just didn't like them. So I don't really know anything about this other than I think he's like a detective and she's a reporter. I really don't know anything about them. But he escaped from Gorilla City. You know, it's funny now because nowadays I kind of like the idea of like intelligent humanoid gorillas as kind of like interesting and something worth exploring. But at the time as a kid, I didn't like him. So he was from Gorilla City, where Gorilla Grodd came from. You know, and Bolivar. I always love that name, Bolivar. The good gorilla that helped the Flash. And this is Blackjack by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, Atari Force. Somebody told me that Atari Force was worth picking up. I don't know anything about this. I have no Atari Force comics in my collection. I really know nothing about it. The only thing I know about Atari Force is exploring these comics, these Who's comics with you guys. So I don't know anything about them. Cannon and Saber by Chuck Patton and Bruce Patterson. Two astounding talents. I love them. Just look how gaudy these comics are. And they fight the Vigilante. I really like the Vigilante comics, and I got in on them in issue 1 because it debuted in the new Teen Titans. So the first issue was Marv Wolfman and George Perez. So how can I not like them? You know, it was I was already a fan, predisposed, Jesus, to like the characters. like, but I just don't remember. I don't, the first couple of issues of that Vigilante, I actually dropped it, even though it was a Marv Wolfman, George Barat. I didn't like it because they tried to make a Punisher, but they didn't commit to the bit. Like, he was still not, you know, you guys run using guns and calls himself Vigilante. He's going to go out at night and kill criminals, but he doesn't actually kill people. I heard later on it becomes really, really violent, but at that point I had already quit. So this is Ron Harris giving us Captain Triumph, Crack Comics 27. I don't know anything about this character other than he looks like an original Superman, kind of like, you know, he can only jump 1/8 of a mile, nothing short of an exploding shell can penetrate his flesh. And I do love these flare. Is that what these are called? The flared boots, that style? I don't know. Let's bring that back. That flared boot style. That is so cool. Again, I don't know anything about him. Captain Triumph. Captain X by Joe Brozowski and Gray Morrow. So where did he debut? Star Spangled Comics #1. Wow, so he's been around a while. That's some old comics. I know that he's a super spy, so like nobody knows his identity, but his Richard Buck Dare. Buck, how that's such a 70s name, Richard Dare. And he's a World War II spy buster. So he stayed stateside, and intelligence would find out that like a Bundists are going to blow up a train or something like that, or, you know, Japanese agents in America are going to do this, and that's what he does. So he foils espionage and sabotage actions stateside. Dragon Sword, Tom Yeats. You know, I'm kind of digging that. I kind of like that. Dragon Sword. Where is this from? Warlord 5 again. Jeez, it seems to be like. You see, this just shows you that when I binge read comics, I forget the details. I binge read like the first 20 issues of Warlord, and I have no recollection of it. I binge read Firestorm, and I have no recollection of it. I got to do something about that. Guy Gardner, Joe Staton. I love Joe Staton. I've always was a Joe Staton fan, but I've really become a Joe Staton fan as I'm buying E-Man. He's one of the co-creators of E-Man. To me, this isn't his best work. You got to look at those early E-Mans. They're so charming, so cool. Guy Gardner is the conservative guy. So he's like corn-fed like Republican guy, and written by a bunch of guys who at first I'll give them the benefit of the doubt in saying that they just don't understand that way of thinking, so that they kind of make him like jerky. And then later on, they just despise that way of thinking, so they just make him... So instead of being like a jerky, arrogant guy, he's just like a flat-out like a-hole later on. But he's supposed to be for guys like me, but even I don't like him because they write him so bad. So I've never... First off, I don't really like the Green Lanterns. I just never liked the concept of the Green Lanterns. Although I do admit that they got some of the best costumes of all time. Just amazing costumes. But just don't like the concept. Never did so. Nodar by Vince Aragonzi and Keith Williams. I don't know anything about this guy. I don't know anything about the creators. So I don't know what to say, but Nodar, Green Lantern, original series 28. It's a horrible costume. And he has a powered spatula. So this is Mechanique by Todd McFarlane and Al Gordon. I know that she was like a time-traveling robot that debuted Infinity Incorporated, and it was because of her machinations that brought the Infinity Incorporated into All-Star Comics. So Infinity Incorporated debuted in All-Star Comics like decades before they were born through time travel. So there you go, time travel. She was just a plot device so that they could introduce the Infinity Incorporated in a comic book decades before they were born. I don't think she really showed up in any stories. Neutron, Action Comics. So I do know that he fought Superman, and then later on he became a member of the Fearsome Five. Other than that, he's just generic nuclear-powered bad guy. But it's something about like the radiation suit as a costume that really works for me. This is by Ross Andrews, creator of the Doom Patrol, and I think I was going to say Ghost Rider. I know he drew Ghost Rider, but I don't think he created him. And Dick Giordano. And the 1000. Look at that. That is such a cool design. Dan Jurgens, an amazing talent. Bob Lewis. Lois Lane 105. So they are an organization that always maintains 1,000 members. So they're like LinkedIn for villains. So it's like a networking society where villains get like the 1,000 like worst people on earth get together, wear masks so nobody knows who they are, and scheme and do horrible things. And look at this. I got this little dog ear down here that's driving me crazy. So I got to use 2 hands now and fold this out. Oh, I hate that. I hate that. So now, speaking of the Vigilante, we got the Vigilante comic, Green Lantern, Booster Gold, Titans, Wonder. At this point, I was getting everything by DC, so I have all of these comics. What condition they're in, we don't know. So there you go. This was 30 minutes on DC Who's Who, issue 26. Thanks a lot, guys, and let me know, how is the sound? How do you like this aspect ratio? I'm trying different things, you know, see what sticks. Okay, thanks a lot. I know you can see more of my dirty desk area. That's kind of why I liked this. It focused in on the comic, but I do like that I have 2 hands that I could do things, and I'm using this microphone for the first time in a long video. So let me know how everything sounds. Thanks a lot, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.